Hello! Welcome to Kristin's Kitchen. I'm your host, Kristin. You guys, it's time to make some pie, okay? So, today I'm going to show you how to make an entire pie, and you get to decide how you are going to divide it up for yourself. If you'd like to make all of your crust one day, and put it in the refrigerator, and then finish making your pie the next day, you can do that. If you have enough time and you want to make your whole pie in one day, you can also do that. You just need to think about the time that you have, the resources that you have, and what your end product, like what you want your end product to be like. So let's get started with ingredients. Okay, I've got my ingredients already laid out, and I'm going to take you through that list. You need 2 cups of flour. When you are working at home, don't forget to kind of fluff up your flour before you put it in your measuring cup, and then level it off good. You need 2 cups of flour. You also need a little bit more, and because I'm working over here, I went ahead and grabbed my extra. You may not need to. You can just grab it whenever you need it. I also have a teaspoon of salt. It's only in this 1/4 measuring cup as its vessel. You may be able to just keep it in your teaspoon at home whenever you are ready to use it. Then I have some butter flavored Crisco. That's the trick for me in this pie. If you already have Crisco, which is shortening, it's the same thing for shortening. So if you already have shortening in your cabinets and you're not going to go buy butter flavored, that is okay. If you need to go to the store and purchase stuff, I do suggest this because it's already in sticks, it's already measured out, and then you just cut it to the amount that you need. Also, whenever you get them, they come in these little containers. So don't throw it away once you open it. This peels back. This is 1 cup. Then I need 3/4 of a cup. So I just look on the side, go to 3/4, and I'm going to just cut off what I need. The good thing about this is, set this to the side. I have my extra. I can put it back in my little container. Cover the top of it. I always kind of like try to seal this end. And then I can put this back in the pantry to be used for something else. Then we need ice cold water. I did not measure this. I just went and got some water because I want this to be super, super cold. I'll explain to you later why we have that. And I will actually measure from this as I'm making the crust. Then I've chosen to make apple pie. So I have 2 cans of apple, and whatever pie you decide to use, make sure if you are going to go to the store and purchase pie filling, make sure you get 2 cans, okay? If you're gonna make your own, then the recipe that you're using for your own pie filling is probably gonna tell you how much you need, and you will just follow that part. Okay kids, I know you're at home, I know you're cooking for yourself or for your family, but here's the deal. You've got to wash your hands. COVID or no COVID, washing your hands before you prepare food is always a good practice. So, you can sing yourself some songs. Make sure they're nice and clean. Turn off your water, dry your hands, and then we can get down to business. Okay, let's get started with our crust. We're going to just use a mixing bowl, and then something else that you need is a pastry blender. If you do not have a pastry blender, you can actually just use 2 knives, and you can kind of put them together, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a little bit. So the first thing that we do is we take our flour. We have 2 cups of flour, our 1 teaspoon of salt, and then we're going to kind of give that a fluff. Sometimes I like to use a fork for that. Or you can get out a whisk if you'd like, and I just kind of mix it around. There's not a lot that goes into it. Just kind of want to move that salt around and get that incorporated with the flour. From there, we're going to cut in the shortening. So I'm going to open up this little present of butter flavored shortening. And sometimes I get out a really sharp knife, and I actually kind of cut it up before I put it in. Now I can put my shortening back into my bowl, and I can kind of just crumble it up and lay it on top of the flour. What's going to happen is this shortening is going to get coated with all this flour and the salt, and we're going to cut it in with the pastry blender, and it's going to make pea-sized particles. Then I'm going to use that ice cold water, and what's going to happen is it's going to make a really tender, flaky crust. The salt is for tenderness, and then the way that we do this Crisco is for a flaky crust. So you can see I have my pieces of shortening in there. I've got my pastry blender, and I'm going to kind of toss it around, if you will, because that's going to kind of coat those pieces with flour. Then I can start pushing this and breaking up those pieces of shortening. And I'm going to work that into pea-shaped particles. Don't worry, they don't need to be perfect. And I will show you what I'm talking about. If you do not have one of these pastry blenders, then you can just get a knife and work it until it is all incorporated. See how it's getting smaller every time I work through it. And the flour's kind of turning almost a yellow hue, if you will. Okay, see how they're nice and small? I can start incorporating the water. Okay, now it's time to really form this into our crust. Here's the thing about this. The recipe tells us that we need 4 to 8 tablespoons of ice cold water, but there are a lot of factors that come into play with how much water you end up using, and that has to do with like the temperature of your home, if it is really dry or really moist in the house. There are a lot of things that just play into that, and so you are going to have to feel it in your heart with this one. So good luck. I think the last couple of times we've made it, so since I'm at school in the foods lab, I think some of our kids have actually used almost 10 tablespoons of water. So let's see what ends up happening. I've got a tablespoon and I have my ice cold water that I can just kind of skim the top and get water. So I'm going to start just sprinkling this over the top. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I've kind of just sprinkled that around. We're done with the pastry blender. Don't put this back in, okay? We're gonna actually switch to a fork. This is the best way to pull this dough together. So it's not real pretty, but I'm just gonna go around the sides and start kind of pulling and combining all the ingredients until they stick together. You can see where some things are starting to stick, but some things are still kind of dry. Here's the thing, you do not want to overwork this dough because we don't want these particles of Crisco to melt or get too small, because that's what creates, when those things are inside of that pie crust, they melt whenever they're baking, and that's what creates the flakiness in the crust. So it is incorporating, but you can see I might need a little bit more water. And I'm kind of pushing it together. You can see what I'm doing here with the fork. Okay, looks like I'm gonna need to add a little bit more, and I'm gonna probably go with 2 tablespoons at a time. Sprinkle, and it's crazy how much that affects it. Just a couple tablespoons of water here. And we will know that it is done whenever it all comes together and kind of stays together, okay? So that takes me to 10 so far. And it looks like I might need a little bit more. almost there. It looks like if I took my hands down in there and really kind of tried to squeeze it all together, it looks like it's about ready to form a ball. 1, 2, so now I'm up to 12. It just depends on the weather in your house, which sounds really crazy to say, but it's the truth. Okay, I feel like things are really trying to stick together. Also, the sides of the bowl are kind of clean. I don't have a lot of white flour in the bottom of my bowl. And you're not gonna get your hands in there too much, but I'm getting ready to switch to my hands. Okay, let me show you what's gonna happen. It's cold because of that water. I'm going to get inside the bowl and I'm gonna kind of start pushing it together. We are not making pizza crust here, people. We're making pie crust. So we're not making yeast bread. That really needs worked. Pie crust does not need overworked, okay? What I'm doing is trying to push this together. Sometimes it needs a little bit of meltiness. Kind of soften the Crisco up a little bit more. Maybe fling a little dough out while you're doing it. And you can see that it is starting. I can keep it in a ball. Now, it's not really, really pretty. It's not super smooth, and that doesn't matter. We just want it to stick together. Do not work this until you do not have any cracks or anything in it, okay? Just get it combined. If there's a little bit of dough left, you can kind of add it to it. Otherwise, if there's a few pieces left in your bowl, don't worry about that, that's fine. Okay, from here, here's a little piece of ice. From here, I'm going to kind of shape it into a little log. And I'm going to just pinch it and divide it into half. I want it to be in 2 parts. No worries, I can pick that part up that just fell. And I'm gonna have 2 dough balls here, 2 pie crusts. 1 for the bottom, 1 for the top. Okay, at this point you get to make a decision as to what you're gonna do. If you wanna stop here and put these in the refrigerator and let those rest and maybe sit for an hour or even up to overnight, you can do that. What you would need to do is wrap these in saran wrap or put them into Ziploc bags or something, and then tomorrow before you are ready to finish up your pie, get those out about half an hour to an hour before you're ready, and then you can finish up your pie. I'm gonna continue. I actually like using the dough right now because it's really soft and it's going to roll out easily, and so I want to show you that, and we're just going to keep going. Okay, apple pie is what I've chosen to make, and I already have some. I went ahead with a pre-purchased filling. No worries, I already paid for it. Anyway, this is just a simple apple pie. If you wanted to add some things to it, so say you did have apple and I wanted to add some extra cinnamon, maybe a little bit of extra vanilla or something like that, then you could. But I am going to keep it as is. This is a good pie filling. I've had it before and it's going to be okay. There's something else that I'm going to do to it after we put it in the crust. I'll show you what I'm talking about there. If you have blueberry, cherry, blackberry, and you do want to add some cinnamon or some almond extract or something like that, just look some things up on your own or ask someone that you know if they've what kinds of other things they add to their pie fillings. Otherwise, keep the pie filling as it is, use it, and then at the end we're gonna dot it with butter. And I'll show you what I'm talking about whenever we get there. Okay, it is time to roll out our crust. And I have a couple of extra tricks that I like to incorporate. So I'm going to show you those. You can decide how you want to roll this out. I have 2 pieces of parchment paper here. I'm going to use those. Listen, this is a foods class full of high school kids, and these are countertops that you're in charge of cleaning. So it's always good to know that the surface that you're working on is sanitary, and so this just helps me take extra measures. I realize it's going into an oven probably kill all those germs, but I like to take extra precautions. So here's the thing. Whenever I'm rolling this out, I don't want it to what am I trying to say right now? Slide all over the place. And so you can just kind of take a couple of sprinkles of water and kind of put it down on your countertop, and then put your bottom piece down, and that's gonna kind of help keep it in place. There you go. Now, I told you needed some extra flour, so I have some extra flour. I'm gonna give it a sprinkle. It's snowing. And I'm not using tons, and I'm just gonna kind of move it around so I have a nice little layer for that bottom crust. Now, if you have one dough ball that's slightly larger, use that one for your bottom crust because it's gonna need to be the biggest. For your pan, I actually have two sizes here. This is the difference between an 8-inch and a 9-inch pan, and it's gonna be dependent upon what you have at home too. Maybe you have a glass pie pan, maybe you have an aluminum one. Whatever you use is fine. You're just gonna have to roll out your dough ball based on the size of the pan that you are using. So not only do I have my dough ball sitting on top of flour, I'm actually gonna press it down, and you see it's kind of falling apart already. I'm actually gonna press it down a little bit into kind of a disc, and I'm gonna give it one more sprinkle of flour. Then I'm gonna use the other piece of parchment paper, and start rolling this out. Listen, this is not perfect, that's okay. It's gonna work out, and I'm gonna show you. So I stay on top. I'm not doing a lot of pushing. I'm just letting it kind of go back and forth, kind of doing its own movement. Do not take a rolling pin and just push down really, really hard at the beginning. Let it kind of move it around itself. See, I didn't get a ton of water on there, but we're doing okay. I like to turn it, and you can see it's starting to grow, okay? Let me show you. Starting to grow. It's not beautiful. It's okay. Can move that flour around. And whatever side I need it to go to is what I can start working. I can start pushing it out and pulling. So right now I'm pushing towards. If I want it to come this way, I'm going to pull back a little bit. You do want this to be nice and even around the top. Kind of level. You don't want it to be super bumpy necessarily. I don't have a perfect circle, and that is okay. I'm gonna work this out. We'll work it out. Can you see it growing over there, under there? And you can see the different kind of swirls. That's that Crisco. Shortening, whatever I should say. Now, how do I know whenever it's ready? I'm actually gonna take my pie pan and I'll set it over the top, and I need a little bit coming out of each side because it needs to, because of the way that this wall is on here, it has to fall down in there. So, I've got a couple spots I need to bring out a little bit more. Check this. So if this is starting to stick a little bit, pull the paper back on itself so that it doesn't lift it up. Looks like I might have enough. I may have to do some piecing, but that's okay. I'd rather show you how to do that in case that happens for you. I think I've worked it as much as I can. So I'm pulling this back on itself. This is a scary part, but don't think about it. Okay, here's the thing about this. We're getting ready to flip this over. And yeah, there's a little bit of flour around here, and this is gonna make a mess, but guess what? Flour is water soluble. It's gonna clean up really, really easily, okay? I do not suggest picking this up and like making a giant motion in the air, but just don't think about it and flip it. And I'm getting ready to show you what I'm talking about. I have my pie pan upside down on top of my crust. I have my paper. If you have wax paper, you can use that too. If you want to buy some parchment paper, you can, or if you want to roll this out on your countertop and someone is around to help you, that's okay too, okay? So I'm gonna go underneath it. I'm gonna hold the pie pan on top of it, and in a quick, swift motion, I'm gonna flip it over without thinking. Flip, okay? Now, I'm going to make sure that whenever I start pulling my parchment paper off, it's not sticking too much. All right, and now I have that off. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but some of the crust is it's not all the way in. So I'm gonna lift that up and gently coach it in there. Come on, pie crust, you can do it. So lift it up. Now, do you see I've got a little bit of a hole here? There's a couple things I can do. And if you have more of a hole, that's okay. You can, have you ever heard the phrase, rob from Peter to pay Paul? You can take some of that and quilt it in. Okay, does that make sense to you? Yeah, I've got some flour, but it's gonna wipe up easily. Everything's gonna be fine. So now we're actually ready for the filling, because I wanna get the filling in, get the butter on top, and then finish up with the top of the crust. Okay, so since I'm not adding anything to this, I don't need to put it in another bowl or anything. I'm just simply going to get it out of the can, fill my pie pan. Oop, there's still one down in there. Ooh, it smells good. And there is a little bit of cinnamon in this, so most apple pie filling does have it. There are some apple pie fillings that are a little extra bougie, and they are actually caramel apple pie filling that you can purchase as well. So that's kind of fun, if you find it. Okay. I used to be in 4-H, and one year I had to make a pie. I think I made like 11 apple pies that summer. It was a lot. And the person that was judging me actually liked for the pie filling to be straight across, but I want to know there's fruit in here. So I'm going to let this kind of stay heaped up a little bit. The next trick we're going to do is we want to add some buttery goodness to this, okay? So I literally have some butter already kind of cut up into some pieces, and I'm going to do what's called dotting the top of this with butter. I'm just going to take a few pieces, go around the top. Okay, this part is what a lot of people forget about. So make sure that you read through the directions. I've got nice directions for you on the recipe. That's why we're doing all this right now. And just put it around until it feels good. And great. Okay, dotted the top. Now we have to get the top of the pie crust ready. Let's do that now. I'm actually going to use the same parchment that I used. Just keep using it. And I'm going to do the same process with putting some flour down. Getting my other ball of dough. Kind of press this down into a disc, if you will. Sprinkle it. And put this on top and roll it out. Now, hopefully you were able to watch the video Monday for class and you were inspired by some pie designs. I'm not expecting you to necessarily do exactly what was on that video, but hopefully I at least inspired you to maybe try something different. I'm going to show you some classic ways actually today, just to keep things simple and to give you some easy tips. So now I'm gonna roll this to where I think that's gonna actually fit on top and just have a little bit of extra so that I can combine the crust and make a good flute edge. Sounds like I'm being really rough, but I promise. Okay, am I getting there? I feel like I'm getting there. Let's check it. I think I have enough to work with. Okay, more flipping action. So, peel this off. Now I'm done with it. And now for some more tricks. You have to turn your thinkers off, and I know that's hard to do. I'm a girl, I have a spaghetti brain, but in these cases, you've just got to let yourself work, okay? So I put my pie in front of me. I kind of line up the top crust with where I want it to go on the pie, and I'm literally gonna lift this thing up. I'm gonna hold the crust and the paper at the same time and pull it towards me. So I do want to give myself a little bit of room so that I don't go off the top here, but you ready? Grab it and flip. Ta-da! Now we're not done yet. We've got a few more things to do. Okay. We have to flute the edge of this crust. And so I'm gonna just go around right now and kind of pinch together the top crust with the bottom crust. There's a couple things we wanna do. Gonna pinch it together. I've got to flute this edge and make it nice and pretty, and then I have to vent the top. If we don't vent the top, the steam from the cooking apples is not gonna come out, and it could end up kind of boiling over. So that you do definitely want a vent. Now, if you're gonna be a little bit more fancy or bougie with this pie crust, and you want to do lattice work, or you want to cut out with some cookie cutters, maybe some leaves or a cute turkey for Thanksgiving, something like that, or any of those cool things that you saw in the video from Monday's assignment, then you will not have to vent it because those already have holes in them. Now, I don't need all of this crust around here, so I'm gonna take a knife and I'm just gonna kind of cut off what I don't need. What I do is I actually go out past the edge of the pie pan a little bit, just so that I have plenty to work with. Now, some people like to save their crust. They'll roll it out, put cinnamon and sugar on it, and bake it, and kind of make some cinnamon sticks or some cinnamon snacks, if you will. Butter, cinnamon, and brown sugar. Works really well. And if you don't want to use it, then you can simply just throw it away. Okay, it's not gorgeous, but it's almost done. I'm gonna show you actually a couple of options that you have for finishing up this crust. You can, I like to come in and kind of pull it up. I'm gonna kind of turn it in on itself. And right now, I'm not worried about the look, okay? I'm just getting the flute edge up. Now, I have actually finished a pie like this before because I call it an artisan pie. It's not perfect, it's not super decorated, but it is super delicious. So, and you can see I have a decent amount of crust here on the edge. If I felt like maybe this part was a little bit thin right here, if I wanted to bring in some of my extra dough and incorporate that, I could. But I'm not worried about it. So you have a couple of options at this point. You can take your finger and your thumb and go through and start pressing this to make that fluted look. And you can go around and do that for the whole thing. You can also grab a fork. Where are my forks? You can also grab a fork and go around the edge, and you do like a push and then kind of pull it. And then you go take the edge, the rung that you just stopped on, go in, push and pull, and you can go around the edge that way if you wish. Okay, you just need to decide what you're gonna do. we're gonna make this one a multiple personality pie. So I'm actually gonna do the same edge. I'm gonna do 2 different edges about halfway through. Okay. Take your thumb and your finger. There are other ways. I've seen people use like 2 fingers and a thumb where they do this. You just have to find what works for your brain, honestly. See how pretty that is? And anything works. So from here, I need to put the vents in it. I can either take a fork and go through and put some holes in it, which is what I think I'm gonna do. Or I can also take a knife and just put a few slits in it this way. Now I have a pie that's ready to go into the oven. Oh my gosh. Couple of options that you have for this. If you're not wanting to bake this right away, maybe you're gonna save the pie for the holiday and make it for your family for Thanksgiving, then you could actually wrap this whole thing up with aluminum foil and put it in the freezer and let it freeze until you're ready to use it. And then I will have baking directions on your Canvas page to tell you how to bake the frozen pie, okay? But today, I'm baking it today because it's Monday, why not, right? And I'm gonna show you a couple of tricks. The first thing is, yes, I vented it, but I did put a lot of filling in it, and I do wanna be careful with it. I don't want to have a smoking oven before Thanksgiving. So I'm actually gonna set my pie on top of a cookie sheet. That way, if it does end up boiling over, the mess is on the cookie sheet and I don't have to worry about it being all over my oven. On top of this, I could actually add some aluminum foil. So then I could just take the aluminum foil off if it ends up kind of boiling over, and then I don't have to worry about the cookie sheet either. But this crust is pretty thick on this side. This crust is kind of thin on this side. So you're gonna have to make a decision on what you wanna do, or you would check your crust. If your crust starts getting a little bit too brown, get out some aluminum foil and you can make like a little color to go around it and protect it from getting too burnt. There are also actual pie collars. I think that's how you say it, a pie collar, like, you know, collar of a shirt. That is just a big round ring. I have a couple at home and they just sit on top of the pie while it's baking. So right now I have an oven that's preheated to 425 degrees. It's going to bake for at least 40 minutes and it could go up to an hour. Oh my goodness. But things take time, you know. So let's put it in the oven. Okay, I have my preheated oven. I've got my pie on top of my cookie sheet. I've got my rack right where I want it. Make sure it's in like the middle or the top. I'm gonna put it on the top rack. I have my oven all the way open so that I'm not worried about the door. I've got it in there. Close my oven and I'm going to check it in 40 minutes. So I'm gonna set the timer. And now we wait. Can't wait to see the finished product. Okay, it's time to get it out. I baked this at 425 for 40 minutes. I came and checked on it, and then I thought to myself, it needs about 10 more minutes. So that's what I did. All of my, what are these called? Hot pads are dirty. So I carefully folded up some towels. You may have to do the same thing. And I'm going to just grab, look at that. Grab my pan here. Get the oven all closed up. Now, you have some options from here. There are some people that like to put some kind of a wash on. Sometimes I will get a pastry brush, and I will brush some milk on top of it, and then I will hurry up and get some sugar and sprinkle that on there. That's an option for you, but you certainly don't have to. You can see how, so this edge over here is where I use the fork, It's a lot thinner, and you can see how it got a little bit darker first. So you just need to keep an eye on things and know when to take it out. Okay, I need to tell you one more thing. Don't make the people in your house clean up your mess after you get done baking your pie, okay? Unless, of course, you want to employ a younger sibling and actually pay them money. Otherwise, I expect you to clean your stuff up, wipe up your countertops, get all the flour picked up, and wash your dishes thoroughly, please. I know that everyone in your house will thank you, and they'll really thank you after they get to try your pie. Yay!